So we'll continue with The Merchant of Venice. We're in scene 3 where it says, Enter Bassanio with Shylock the Jew. Shylock, 3,000 ducats. Well, so Bassanio says, I serve for 3 months. So Bassanio has come to ask Shylock, the Jewish merchant, for a loan of 3,000 ducats. Ducats are probably gold coins, so he wants a loan of 3,000 ducats for 3 months because he wants to go to woo Portia, the rich heiress of Belmont, uh, and he wants to go suitably uh, dressed, equipped, and so on to woo such a great lady. So, the terms that Bassanio offers to Shylock for the loan are that he wants 3,000 ducats for 3 months. So Shylock considers the matter and he says, For 3 months, well, Bassanio, for the which, as I told you, Antonio shall be bound. So Bassanio says that the surety, that is the guarantor for the loan, will be his benefactor Antonio. So Antonio shall become bound for the bond. Shylock then considers the matter deeply. He says, Antonio shall become bound. Well, Bassanio, may you stead me? Will you pleasure me? Shall I know your answer? So Bassanio wants to know if Shylock will agree to the terms of the bond, and he asks him if Shylock will pleasure him, if that is, if Shylock will lend him the 3,000 ducats, and he wants to know Shylock's answer to these terms. Shylock says, 3,000 ducats for 3 months and Antonio pound. So he's considering the matter, he's pondering deeply about the terms of the bond. Bassanio, your answer to that? Antonio is a good man. Now, Shylock doesn't immediately say yes or no. He wants to go round and round the matter before he says yes or no. He wants to consider the whole situation. Antonio is a good man, he says. Bassanio, have you heard any imputation to the contrary? So Bassanio asks Shylock if he's heard anything contrary to the opinion that Antonio is a good man. So Shylock, oh, no, 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 no. My meaning in saying he is a good man is to have you understand me that he is sufficient. Yet his means are in supposition. He hath an argosy bound to Tripoli, another to the Indies. I understand, moreover, upon the Rialto, that he hath a third at Mexico, a fourth for England, and other ventures he hath squandered abroad. But ships are but boards, sailors but men. There be land rats and water rats, water thieves and land thieves. I mean pirates. And then there is the peril of waters, winds, and rocks. The man is, notwithstanding, sufficient. 3,000 ducats. I think I may take his bond. So Shylock says that what he means by saying that Antonio is a good man is to make Bassanio understand that he is sufficient. Sufficient means that as a guarantor, Shylock can be assured that his money will be returned by Antonio and Bassanio. So he is quite reliable guarantor. That's what Shylock says he means. Uh, but then he considers Antonio's ventures, Antonio's enterprises, they're all ships. He said, Shylock knows that Antonio has got an argosy. Argosy is a huge trading ship. One argosy is bound to Tripoli. Tripoli is somewhere near Greece. And he has another argosy to the Indies, that is the West Indies. And Shylock says that he understands from the talk at the Rialto. The Rialto is the marketplace. From the talk at the Rialto, that Antonio has a third argosy bound for Mexico, a fourth for England, and other ventures he had squandered abroad. So he's got many ships trading in different parts of the world. But Shylock knows the reality of the matter. No matter how magnificent the merchandise may be, Antonio's got a lot of merchandise which he's trading in all parts of the world. But on the other hand, ships are but boards. Ships are made from boards of wood. Sailors but men. Sailors are men who are given to the circumstances. If circumstances be favorable, then sailors will be successful. But if circumstances are unfavorable, then sailors may not be depended on so much. So then again, Sherlock says there be land rats and water rats, water thieves and land thieves. He means pirates. So pirates are robbers who sail upon the sea and rob ships. So uh, all of Antonio's ships uh, have a good chance of being waylaid by pirates on the open ocean, says Shylock. And then there is a peril of waters, winds, and rocks. And then again, there are the dangers of storms, waters, and there are the dangers of winds too, strong winds, stormy winds, and there's also the danger of rocks near the shore. So these are all the dangers which Antonio faces. However, Shylock says the man is notwithstanding sufficient. So he thinks that Antonio is going to be a good guarantor, good surety for the bond. So he says he'll take the bond for 3,000 ducats. So Bassanio says, be assured you may, Shylock. I will be assured I may, and that I may be assured I will bethink me. May I speak with Antonio? So he says that in order to assure himself that everything will be okay and his money will be returned, he wants to think about the matter even more, and he asks to speak with Antonio. Bassanio says, if it please you to dine with us. So Bassanio invites Shylock home to dinner with him so that they can discuss the matter further over some food. Shylock says, yes, to smell pork, to eat of the habitation which your prophet the Nazarite conjured the devil into. I will buy with you, sell with you, talk with you, walk with you, and so following. But I will not eat with you, drink with you, nor pray with you. What news on the Rialto? Who is he comes here? So Shylock says that as a Jew, he is forbidden to eat the flesh of pigs. But Christians like Bassanio and Antonio eat pork. Pork is the flesh of pigs. So Shylock says that he doesn't want to eat of the pigs, the habitation into which the prophet, the Nazarite, conjured the devil into. That is, Jesus, in performing one of his miracles recorded in the Bible, conjured or made the devils go into the bodies of some pigs. And Shylock says that he does not want to eat pork. He will walk with the Christians, he will buy with them, he will sell with them, talk with them, and so on. But he will not eat with Christians, drink with Christians, nor pray with Christians. So somebody enters and he says, who is he comes here? Enter Antonio. Bassanio says, this is Signor Antonio. Shylock aside. Now, Shylock and Antonio are old enemies. They are against each other. They have a lot of dudgeon against each other. And Shylock secretly says in an aside. Aside means that it is speech which the audience can hear, but the other characters on the stage cannot. So Shylock says, he's talking about Antonio, how like a fawning publican he looks. I hate him, for he is a Christian, but more for that in low simplicity he lends out money gratis and brings down the rate of usance here with us in Venice. If I can catch him once upon the hip, I'll feed fat the ancient grudge I bear him. He hates our sacred nation and he rails. Even there where merchants most do congregate, on me my bargains and my well won thrift, which he calls interest. Cursed be my tribe if I forgive him. So Shylock has got a lot of grudge has got a lot of grudges against Antonio, and he describes Antonio as a fawning publican. A fawning person is one who bends low and bows and speaks in a very ingratiating manner, wanting to make a good impression on everybody and anybody he meets. A fawning publican. Publican is one who visits the public places like the market or the pub and so on. So, according to Shylock, Antonio looks like a fawning publican, one who is eager to please anybody and everybody he meets. And Shylock says that he hates Antonio because Antonio is a Christian. But more than the fact that he's a Christian, Shylock hates him because Antonio lends out money gratis. Antonio lends out money without any interest, without taking any interest. And because he has such practices, the the market for money lenders has been brought down. He brings down the market for usance. Usance is money lending, where people lend money and take interest on the money lent, along with the principal, which should be returned. So in Venice, Antonio lends out money interest free. So the market for money lenders has been brought down. And Shylock says if he can catch Antonio once upon the hip, if he can catch him in a weak moment, then Shylock will feed fat the ancient grudge he bears him. So he will take revenge against Antonio for all the hurt that he has caused Shylock and all the losses that he has caused Shylock. So Shylock says that Antonio hates the sacred nation of the Jews, and Antonio rails, that is, he vociferates, he scolds, he berates, and he talks in loud tones against Shylock, where merchants most do congregate, that is, in the marketplace, where merchants congregate, where merchants gather. Antonio speaks out against Shylock endlessly, and he speaks about how Shylock is a cutthroat moneylender, which Shylock says he's made bargains, and he calls his cutthroat money lending business as well one thrift. Thrift is the ability to deal with money, to save and buy and to trade. So Shylock says he's got thrift, well won thrift, that is, he has to try, make an effort to trade, but Antonio keeps on keeps going on against Shylock's practices, and he says that Shylock uh, is more interested in the money, in the interest that his money earns, than in the people that he lends the money to. So Shylock says that his tribe, that is the Jews, his tribe may be cursed if Shylock forgives Antonio. Bassanio. Shylock is lost in this reverie, Shylock is lost in his thoughts. So Bassanio calls him back to the present and he says, Shylock, do you hear? Shylock says, I am debating of my present store, and by the near guess of my memory, I cannot instantly raise up the gross of full 3,000 ducats. What of that? Tubal, healthy, wealthy Hebrew of my tribe, will furnish me. But soft, how many months do you desire? So Shylock says that he was thinking about his present means, his present store of money, and as far as he can guess, roughly, he cannot instantly raise 3,000 ducats from the money he has got hoarded up. But he asked Bassanio not to worry. He asked Bassanio not to worry because Tubal, who is a wealthy fellow merchant, who is a wealthy Jewish merchant, will lend Shylock the 3,000 ducats. Um, then Shylock again asks, how many months does Bassanio desire to have the money? Then he addresses Antonio. Shylock addresses Antonio. Rest you, fair good signor, your worship was the last man in our mouths. So, in front of Antonio, Shylock speaks very politely. So he says, he addresses Antonio as good signor. A signor is aristocratic person in Italy. So, rest you fair good signor, your worship was the last man in our mouths. So he addresses Antonio as your worship, and he says that Antonio was the last man they were speaking about before Antonio arrived. Antonio. Now, Antonio is really superior merchant, and he addresses Shylock in no uncertain terms. He treats Shylock as one who is lower than him. So Antonio says, Shylock, albeit I neither lend nor borrow by taking nor by giving of excess, yet to supply the ripe wants of my friend I'll break a custom. To Bassanio, is he yet possessed how much you would? So Antonio tells Shylock that he neither lends money nor borrows money but, by asking for interest. He never asks for interest. Yet at that moment, because he does not have the money with him, because Antonio doesn't have the money with him, and he wants to help Bassanio, his friend, and Bassanio has got some right wants. He's got some plans and purposes which he wants to put into action for which he needs the money. He says that Antonio says he'll break a custom and borrow money on interest. So he asked Bassanio if Shylock is Shylock understands how much Bassanio wants. Shylock says, I 3,000 ducats, and for 3 months, says Antonio. Shylock, I had forgot. 3 months to Bassanio. You told me so. Well, then you're gone, and let me see. But hear you. Methought you said you neither lend nor borrow upon advantage. So uh, then Shylock says that they'll discuss the terms of the bond, and then he asks Antonio that it is Antonio's custom never to lend nor borrow by taking interest. He neither lends money on interest nor takes money on it, borrows money on interest. He never uses advantage in his monetary dealings. So Antonio says, I do never use it. Shylock says, when Jacob grazed his uncle Laban's sheep, this Jacob from a holy Abraham was, as his wise mother wrought him in his behalf, the third possessor. I, he was the third. So Shylock goes into an aside, and Shylock goes into a digression, and he quotes from the Bible. In the Bible, there are two characters called Jacob and Laban. So their wealth in biblical times, the wealth of people was measured by the amount of sheep and goats and cattle they had. So Jacob was the third child. So Jacob was the third child of his mother. So usually the firstborn gets all the property, and the second and third get relatively little, lesser share in the property than the firstborn. So Jacob was a third possessor. He was a third child. Antonio doesn't immediately understand why Shylock is quoting from the Bible, and he says, "And what of him? Did he take interest?" Shylock says, "No, not take interest, not as you would say directly interest." So Shylock explains himself. Mark you what Jacob did. When Laban and himself were compromised, that all the eanlings which were streaked and five should fall as Jacob's hire, the ewes being rank in end of autumn turned to the rams. And when the work of generation was between these woolly breeders in the act, the skilful shepherd piled me certain wands, and in the doing of the deed of kind he stuck them up before the fulsome ewes, we who then conceiving did in ewing time fall party colored lambs, and those were Jacob's. This was the way to thrive, and he was blessed, and thrift is blessing if men steal. So Shylock draws a moral from this biblical story. He says that Jacob, in order to get the most of the lambs and ewes and whatever was considered wealth in biblical times, when Jacob and Laban were compromised, that is, they had a competition to see who would get the most share of the ewes and lambs. Um, and the terms were that all the lambs, that all the eanlings which were streaked and pied, that is, which were born with the stripes on them, should belong to Jacob. Then what did Jacob do? At the end of autumn, when it's mating time for the rams and the ewes, uh, when the work of generations between the bully breeders was in that, that is when the ewes and rams fell to mating, uh, then what Jacob did was he stuck up some crossed sticks in front of the ewes. So when the ewes conceived and the lambs were born, all the lambs had stripes on them. So these lambs were belonged to Jacob. So Jacob used a clever trick to get more property. So what Shylock is saying here is that even in biblical times, since the since the custom of trade has been in man, whenever man traded, even in biblical times and before that, people have always taken interest, and people have always had a motive to get more and more property. That is human nature. That is what Shylock is illustrating. And Shylock says that what Jacob did, even though it may be considered a trick or something cunning, uh, Shylock calls it thrift, And thrift is a blessing. So if men have more property or more money, it is a blessing if others do not steal it. So Antonio doesn't understand immediately what Shylock is saying. So Antonio says, "This was a venture, sir, that Jacob served for, a thing not in his power to bring to pass, but swayed and fashioned by the hand of heaven. Was this inserted to make interest good, or is your gold and silver used in rams?" So Antonio says that the story which is narrated in the Bible of Jacob and Laban was fashioned by the hand of God. Because it's in the Bible, it is fashioned or formed by God's will. So Antonio asks Sherlock, why did he insert this story? Was it to make interest look good? Was it to make the interest which people get on money good? Or is your gold and silver ewes and rams? So Sherlock says, I cannot tell. I make it breed as fast. But not me, senor. So Shylock says that he can make gold and silver multiply as fast as farmers make ewes and rams multiply. So we'll continue.